Today I will be giving you 3 examples of how to complete the square in varying difficulty, and I will show you the 5 main steps in order to be successful while completing the square. So the first problem we're going to use is x squared minus 8x plus 5 equals 0. Step 1 is to move the constant term to the other side of the equal sign. So now we're left with x squared minus 8x equals negative 5. Step 2 is to move the coefficient in front of x squared outside of the parentheses. Since there is no coefficient in front of x squared, we will continue with step number 3. Step number 3 is to divide the b term by 2 and then square it. So we would take negative 8x, divide it by 2 to get negative 4, and square it to get plus 16. Now we have to balance out the equation by adding 16 to the other side of the equal sign, so it becomes negative 5 plus 16. Step 4 is to factor, so we'll draw a set of parentheses and we'll put x minus 4 squared in that equals 11. So we got the x minus 4 from pulling out an x and dividing the negative 8 by 2 to get negative 4, and we squared it all. If you notice, negative 4 squared equals positive 16, which is what was originally there, and negative 5 plus 16 is positive 11. Next, we're going to solve for x by taking the square root of both sides. So we have the square root of x minus 4 squared, and we have the square root of 11, which gives you x minus 4 equals the square root of 11. Now to finish the problem, you're just going to add 4 to the other side of the equation. So you have x equals 4 plus or minus the square root of 11. Always remember your plus or minus when you're taking the square of something. To start out problem number 2, we're going to use x squared plus 12x plus 4 equals 0. We're going to continue on with step number 1 of moving your constant term to the other side of the equal sign. So now we have x squared plus 12x equals negative 4. Once again, there is no coefficient in front of x squared, so we will move on to step number 3. Step 3 is to divide your b term by 2 and square it. So we will take 12 divided by 2, which is 6. Squared is 36. And once again, you have to balance out your equation by adding the 36 to the other side of the equation with negative 4. Step 4 is to then again draw your parentheses and pull out your x plus 6 by dividing the 12 by 2. Again, notice 6 squared equals 36. And then on the other side of the equal sign, add your 36 plus negative 4, which gives you 32. Step 5 is to then solve for x by taking the square root of both sides. So you'll take the square root of x plus 6 squared and the square root of 32. And that will give you x plus 6 equals the square root of 32. The square root of 32 can be simplified further, so in order to do that, we're going to use a factor tree to pull out the pairs that can be used to simplify it. So you split up 32 into 2 times 16, 2 times 8, 2 times 4, 2 times 2, and then you circle your pairs of 2, so you're left with 2 times 2 square root of 2, which leaves you with x plus 6 equals 4 square root 2. To finish off the problem, you're going to subtract 6, which leaves you with x equals negative 6 plus or minus 4 square root 2. So for this third equation, we're going to use 2x squared minus 8x plus 5 equals 0. Then we are going to continue step 1, like we have done in the previous 2 equations, by moving the constant term to the other side of the equal sign, so we are left with 2x squared minus 8x equals negative 5. Now this equation is different than the past 2 we've done. This equation has a 2 in front of the x squared, so that means that we will actually get to do step number 2. So we're going to pull out the 2 outside of the parentheses and then place x squared minus 4x. 2 times x squared will give you 2x squared, and 2 times negative 4x will give you negative 8x. Step number 3 will continue as normal. So you will divide your b term by 2 and square it. Negative 4 divided by 2 is negative 2, and negative 2 squared is 4. So you will leave the 2 outside the parentheses and continue by writing x squared minus 4x plus 4 equals negative 5. Here's where it becomes a little different than the previous 2 questions we have done. because we pulled out the 2 in front of the x squared minus 4x plus 4, we have to add an 8 to the other side of the equation instead of a 4 because we have to distribute the 2 to the 4, which will give you 8, and we have to add the 8 to negative 5 in order to completely balance the equation. Then you will continue on as you would to step 4. So you will leave your 2 pulled out. You will draw your set of parentheses and write your x minus 2 squared equals 3. And then in order to get rid of the 2 on the outside, you have to divide both sides by 2. So you're just left with x minus 2 squared equals 3 over 2. Step number 5 is to solve for x by taking the square root of both sides. So you're left with x minus 2 equals the square root of 3 over 2, which leaves you with x equals 2 plus or minus the square root of 3 over 2. Thank you for watching, and I hope you learned something new about solving by completing the square.